My name is Dina Rosen, and I work at Kane University in the United States, in the state of New Jersey. And on today's agenda, we're going to talk about the global relevance of TPACK and developmentally appropriate technology use, DATU. First, let me make sure everyone can hear me okay. If you can just type quickly in the chat, a couple of people. Terrific. As Adriana explained, today we're going to be using a technology called polling. We're going to ask you a few questions, and we'll be able to broadcast the answers so that everyone can see people's opinions. I'm going to bring up the first poll, and the question is, regarding the terms digital native and digital immigrant, I'd like to know if you've heard of these terms before. Terrific. Just type in the chat room if you can see the results. Just a couple people so I know. Terrific. Okay, that's a good number of people. Actually, it looks like we're about 50-50 on the terms. So for some of you, this particular idea will be new for you. That's good to know. Okay, I'm going to put away this poll now. Thank you for participating. I'm going to ask for another poll. Right on this screen, we have two pictures. Let me bring up the poll. Oh, wow. That one's a large poll, so let me hide it. In a minute, I'll bring up the poll. For some reason, it's large, so I'm going to hide it just for a minute. In this top picture, we see a family in their living room. It's an American family from the United States. And on the left, we see young children working on their computers. We see a mom reading a book and a dad reading the newspaper. Picture 2, we see the children again on different forms of technology, an iPad and a computer. And we see the parent, the dad, also using an iTouch. So my question is going to be, there are going to be 4 responses that you can give me. And the question is going to be, describe family use of digital tools in your own country. Is it similar to picture 1, where the children are using the technology, but the older generation isn't using it much? Is it similar to picture 2, where all generations embrace technology? Let me go ahead and bring up that poll so you can see it, and you can see your other choices. So again, we have picture 1, where it's common among the younger generation, picture 2 among the older generation. Option 3 is, well, really it depends on socioeconomic status. And option 4 is, technology use is just not common in the homes in my country. Very interesting results. Not surprising for me. Let's go ahead. We're going to hold that information for a little bit. Thank you for participating. All right. This is the last set of polls in this series. And this question has to do with the connection or the disconnection between technology use at home and technology use in the schools. Let me pull up poll 3. Which statement best reflects your opinion? There is greater technology use at home than in the school. There is greater technology use in school than the home, or it's equal, that our schools use it about the same amount as children use the technologies at home. Again, oh, okay, we're changing a little. Well, that's great to see. Equal use. I'd like to explore that further, perhaps. I wonder, is that because there's not much technology use at home and there's not much technology use at school? Or is that a more positive outcome? Very interesting. Thank you. Earlier, I asked you about the terms digital native and digital immigrant, and now I'm going to introduce the concept of digital foreigner. Over here on the left, and over here also on the left, are the children who are the digital natives. The digital natives are persons born into highly technical worlds. They are very comfortable with technology. The digital immigrant was not born into the technical age, but has developed strong competence with the technology and use it easily. Then we have the digital foreigners. The digital foreigners use technology if it's necessary, but they really prefer non-digital means. For example, they often print out pages to read instead of reading them online. So actually, this is our last poll in the series, and I'd like to get a sense of how you define yourself. Do you consider yourself a native, young, born into that time, and have skills? Do you consider yourself an immigrant? You weren't born into the time when technology was popular and common, but you're very comfortable with it, or are you uncomfortable with technology? Given that we're on a webinar, that's not a surprising result. So we're mostly older and comfortable with technology. Terrific. We'll close that one. Many educators in the U.S. believe there's a growing distance between school tools and children's life tools. And we saw that in our own survey. About half of us felt there was a disconnect. Educators today talk about the 21st century classroom. One characteristic of the 21st century classroom is that it embraces technology. TPACK is a framework that can guide technology integration in schools. And that is the reason why teachers and teacher educators need to be aware of the theory and the framework of TPACK. Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge, TPACK, emphasizes that teaching draws upon many kinds of knowledges. Specifically, that it draws upon 3 kinds of individual knowledge bases: technical knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and content knowledge. TPACK approach, though, goes beyond these 3 individual knowledge bases in isolation. Where the 3 knowledge bases meet in the center, that's what we consider TPACK. Now we're going to look at each one of the individual knowledge bases and each one of the shaded areas more closely. At the core of TPACK is the idea that teachers need a solid, deep knowledge of content they are going to teach. This knowledge is developed via academic training and personal world experience. Content knowledge is deep knowledge of the discipline, the actual subject matter that is being taught or learned. Content knowledge is the understanding of the key principles, the theories, the concepts, and the vocabulary related to a specific discipline or subject. We think of content as being passed from the teacher to the student. But while it is true that content knowledge is important, because you can't teach what you do not know, you must know that information, research says that content knowledge is not enough. You cannot just simply put good content in front of students. You have to teach them, you have to be able to put it in front of them in a way that makes it easily understood. You might have had a teacher who was very knowledgeable in their subject area at one point, but really just couldn't express it well to you, couldn't express it in a way that you could easily understand it. That's because this teacher had good content knowledge, but did not have good pedagogical knowledge, knowledge of how to express that information to you. So let's look a little bit more into pedagogical knowledge. Pedagogical knowledge consists primarily of knowledge about the instructional techniques and methods one can use to express information, to engage children in learning about content. Group work, different kinds of jigsaw, all different kinds of approaches. Pedagogical knowledge also includes knowledge about students, an understanding of students, their nature, their differences, their conceptions and misconceptions. What about specific content challenges then? A third component of pedagogical knowledge has to do with classroom management techniques. And the fourth and final part is knowledge of assessment. So essentially, pedagogical knowledge is what allows you to know what, when, and where, and how to teach something. So we examined content knowledge, and we examined pedagogical knowledge. Right here in the middle, in 1986, a researcher by the name of Schulman described something in the middle, a combination of pedagogical knowledge and content knowledge. There are certain instructional approaches, pedagogies, that are more appropriate for certain content. So when you consider both content and pedagogy and find the perfect match, that's what sits inside pedagogical content knowledge. Let me give you an example. While the pedagogy of small groups of children working together doing an experiment is appropriate for an exploration of chemical properties and reactions, this pedagogy would not be appropriate for a historical exploration of Hiroshima, that is, the dropping of the atom bomb and the related chemical reactions. While they're both about chemical reactions, an experiment about Hiroshima would not be an appropriate pedagogy. Rather, a literacy-based pedagogy, such as reading an historical fiction novel about a child living through Hiroshima, that would be a highly appropriate tool for exploring the social and political implications of the chemical reactions. So it is all about finding the match, finding that right pedagogy to teach that specific content. Another example, many educators do not like drill and practice as a pedagogy. There are some subject areas, however, where it's pretty okay and actually helpful to use drill and practice. For example, multiplication. Sometimes it's just about practicing those multiplication tables. That would be a good match of content and pedagogy. I'd like you to take a look at this cartoon. While the cartoon hints to the negative impact of technology, it also describes how technology is ubiquitous. It is part of every aspect of our life. Pedagogical content knowledge was not established when technology was ubiquitous, when technology was in every aspect of our life. In 1986, this was not the case. We weren't living as this cartoon suggests. Now our children are digital natives. They're very comfortable with technology and they prefer technology. So now we move from PCK towards TPACK, TPCK. So this brings us to the point of the T, the technology. Let's look into the technology. The T of technology is knowing, that's the technological content knowledge, is knowing how to use a specific technology. Some tools are very easy to use and require very little technical knowledge. Other tools are very complex and require significant technological knowledge. If we look at this picture, it's an ancient Egyptian writing on stone. The ancient Egyptians who recorded history in stone needed specific knowledge of that very high-tech tool at the time, the chisel. Few men could pick up the chisel and carve an image into the stone. There was technological knowledge needed. Similarly, today, few teachers can turn on the whiteboard and automatically know how to handwrite a word and turn it into text. There's technological knowledge needed to use this new tool of the electronic whiteboard. So technological knowledge, this piece right here, is knowing exactly how to use the technology. Now we're going to look at the piece in between the pedagogical circle and the technical circle. Knowing how to use the technology, again, doesn't mean that you can use it effectively to teach with, to express the content. You need to combine your understanding of the technology with your understanding of pedagogy, how to teach. Making good use of technology is what technological pedagogical knowledge is about. Why is this picture here so funny? One reason is it doesn't make good sense. Generally, cats do not develop vision problems and do not need glasses. So this is not a good use of the technology of glasses. The purpose does not match the technology. So technological pedagogical knowledge is making good use of technology, not choosing something that doesn't bring a higher value to what you're doing. Let's look at that more specifically. Both of these are examples of the electronic whiteboard, the smartboard or the Promethean board you might be familiar with. The one on the top is basically a penmanship activity. Two children are writing the name of the planet. This activity is like a cat wearing glasses. It is a poor use of the features of the whiteboard. The image on the bottom takes advantage of the interactivity features of the whiteboard. The children will label the objects and then move them into the correct order. This is a much better use of the features of the specific technology, where the teacher blends the understanding of what is good teaching and what are the capabilities of this specific technological tool. This is not an example of a cat wearing glasses. Another aspect of technological pedagogical knowledge is these new tools of today are creating new pedagogical possibilities. Before, we were unable to communicate with people outside of those who were immediately in front of you. Tools like the one we're using now allow us to interact collaboratively with people all over the world. Blogs, wikis, YouTube, smartphones, iPods, iPads, GPSs, all of those tools allow us to interact. So I have another poll question I'm curious about. Let me bring that up. I'd like to know, there we go. Let me just make that a little bigger for you. Let me broadcast my results. I'd like to know, do you use social networking or any other collaborative digital tool in your teaching? I'm just watching the results. We have a lot of people using social networking or collaborative digital tools with some portion of the population. I'm going to go ahead and hide that. So the point here is that the combination of these two fields of knowledge, knowledge of technology, what technology can bring to the educational equation, and knowledge of good teaching can actually create new opportunities. There are people thinking about, well, how can I use the particular features of this technology to achieve good pedagogy? And that's what's happening with these digital 2.0 tools that allow for collaborative work through technology. Now I'm going to consider the part of the circle right here, which is in between technological knowledge and content knowledge. These two have actually influenced each other to create great opportunities. Right here on the screen, are pictures of human chromosomes. If you were to look under a microscope at the set of human chromosomes, we have 26 of them, 26 chromosomes. This is what it would look like right here. Notice how individual chromosomes overlap and how some of them are crooked. In the mid-1980s, I worked in a genetics lab. At that time, what we would do is we would take a scissor and we would cut out each individual, we would print out this picture right here. We would cut out each individual chromosome, and then we would carefully look at them with our eye, with an artistic eye, try to find the bands and match them up, and try to find the pairs, based on how it looked to us personally. And then the set of karyotypes would look like this. This is a matchup. And what scientists would do with these karyotypes is they look at the bands, and that's how they can identify genetic disorders, Fragile X, and several other genetic disorders identified this way. So if someone is pregnant and they take an amnio exam, they look at the chromosomes and they determine if the baby is healthy in this manner. Now look what they can do today. Using technical tools, using digital technology, and understanding the content, how chromosomes can be evaluated, what that information tells us. Now they color code the bands, so it's a lot easier to compare and identify genetic abnormalities. So this combination right here is actually creating new possibilities. That's the idea of technological content knowledge, understanding how technology influences and can change content, how it can change their understanding. The understanding of genetic disorders and the prediction of genetic disorders has highly improved with the advance of technologies because of this particular explanation. That's actually a basic introduction to TPACK and all the combining elements to create TPACK. Now I'm going to discuss developmentally appropriate technology use. Developmentally appropriate technology use, first of all, begins with careful exploration of children's development. It considers their cognitive development. The goal is to build on the existing knowledge. It also considers their social development. Individual technology use is not preferred over collaborative technology use that requires discussion, turn-taking, and careful listening skills. Technology use should engage children in discussion and conversation and working together, exploration and investigation. Those are all aspects of DATU. I'm going to try to, at the end, I'm going to come back to this idea and show you a few videos to explore that. Just technically, it's difficult to pop in and out of two different modes, so I'll have to wait to show it to you. Another aspect of DATU is that it uses digital tools and strategies in ways that capitalize on children's natural desire to actively and collaboratively construct knowledge. Now, I had mentioned earlier the use of drill and practice with multiplication facts is actually common. They use drill and practice with technology. There are lots of games that have drill and practice. There are a lot of technological drill and practice games. But there's another way you can think about this. Why not give children, very young children, a calculator, a 4-function calculator? 5 times 0, 3 times 0, 2 times 0. Ask them what they notice. Let them use the calculator and write their answers down on their paper. Use the calculator and write their answers down on the paper. Then ask them what they notice. And at that point, they'll probably discover the rule. Anything times 0 is 0. So discovery orientation, children's natural desire just to play and learn and think about things, that's important. Here's an example of developmentally appropriate technology use. Many preschools around the world consider geometry with young children. They discuss a triangle, a square, the circle, the features of them. They'll show a triangle, square, and a circle. Children will trace the shapes. Children will color the shapes. They'll draw the shapes. Children will walk around the room and find objects that are examples of the shapes. Another way to discuss this subject using technology is when you do go on your walk in the room or outside of the classroom, take your digital camera with you and let the children record their ideas in the camera so they can find parallel lines. And when you come back to the classroom, I'm going to try this here, you can use digital tools to look at their ideas and talk about them. And we can find the parallel lines. And some kids may see the parallel lines going across. And some kids may talk about parallel lines in this direction. You can talk about and illustrate right angles or any other concepts. Again, it builds on the pedagogy already existing in the preschools, and it says, well, how can I take my knowledge of how my children learn, of the content I'm teaching them, and my knowledge of what this technology can give me, and put it all together and make something terrific. And I think this is one example of that. Developmentally appropriate technology use suggests that technology is a tool appropriate for young children, just like fingerprints and just like blocks. It suggests that technology should be introduced to children in very playful ways, just as we introduce finger paints in a very playful way. Students should be encouraged to explore the technology in open ways. Initially, when they start finger painting, they're just moving around, playing with it, not trying to make anything in particular. That's just how they should start with technology. So, for example, if you're working on creating a digital story, the first thing they should do with it before they record their actual story is they should play with the microphone. Make funny sounds into the microphone and just listen. Then maybe they might want to sing something that should sound in a particular way, and then they can listen. And once they're comfortable with the tool and they've played it and have already made products that are very open-ended with the tools, then you can begin trying to make products that have a specific outcome. Developmentally appropriate technology use also encourages the use of technology in documenting children's learning and development. On the screen is a portfolio used by a preschool. I froze for a second. On the left-hand side are the standards that center has. Knows and understands family and community characteristics. Supports and empowers family through respectful relationships. So here, a teacher takes a digital picture of children's work and records their thinking about it, the evidence of their learning, into a portfolio. DATU encourages teachers to capture evidence with technology, evidence of learning that would otherwise disappear. For example, this is an Etch-a-Sketch drawing. And a teacher took a digital picture and kept it on a file to record this very interesting drawing, a terrific example with lots of details of a conversation that's written in the document. And that's my presentation on an introduction to TPACK, Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge, and DATU, Developmentally Appropriate Technology Use. And now we will have some time for Q&A.
Hello, Dina. I will read some comments and questions that we have received here, the I10 team has received from the chat. And then if you want, I can read them and you can go ahead and answer them. So, first of all, Q Morton asked, what is your status, Dina, when you were referring to different digital natives or immigrants? So he wanted to know what was your own status. Judith Halbolo said, our schools here in San Vicente have been given notebooks, but my concern is that whether the teachers can...
So my own status, first of all, is I am an immigrant. And while I'm very comfortable with technology, I can look at many young students and see that they are certainly even more natural with technology than I have developed my skills. Regarding the notebook question, I agree that what TPACK suggests is that teachers do need to have strong knowledge of the particular tool they're using and what are some key features they should pay attention to in thinking about, okay, their understanding of their content and what they need to teach, and then looking at the pedagogy, who their students are and how their students learn, the particular reality of their own classroom. So it is impossible to teach well with technology unless you have all of that knowledge. So you're right that a good way to start your teachers on effective teaching with technology is to begin by pointing out, giving them some tips on some of the key features. It wouldn't be your job as the coordinator to find all the activities, but just to say, look at this aspect of this notebook that I think this might be helpful to you, this feature, this added value. For example, when working with iPads, there are terrific apps for note-taking where you can write, not type, but you can actually write by hand and keep your notes and make drawings, and that's great, and that's a great feature. There are apps with the iPad. There was a medical school that had trouble offering good pictures of different parts of the body to their students because it's very expensive to reproduce them. And now there are some great apps that if students have an iPad, they can look at terrific interactive, not just terrifically colored images, but terrific interactive images that elements can be peeled away and they can look inside. So there are definitely a lot of features that different specific technologies have, and you do have to identify them and get teachers started in thinking, or at least knowing that their task is to pick out the feature that illustrates a challenge area for them. You know, what are you struggling with in terms of presenting your content? You know, what's giving you a challenge regarding the pedagogy? You know, what do you think you could use a little help in? And then look for the technology that will actually help you.
Well, Dina, we have received one more question. So Judith Halbalo says, how can technology be used in differentiated teaching? And another comment is from MRSP that says, I have an interactive whiteboard in my class.
So the first question is about differentiating instruction. And really technology offers a lot for teachers regarding differentiated instruction because it allows us to individually track children on their performance in certain kinds of technologies. And it is easy for us to store multiple activities. We don't have to have them cluttering up our classroom. We can actually easily store several levels of the same kind of activity and just have them in one digital folder. So one aspect of what digital technology offers for differentiated instruction is on the level of a teacher organizing her classroom, over time, carefully using a good structure in her computer to keep folders with different levels of information, so it's just easy to pull them up. Another aspect that can be helpful for teachers is differentiating instruction. A big element of differentiating instruction is having multiple ways to present information. Often, the kids who find it easy in classes and in current schools are kids who learn through text and hearing. The tactile learners, the visual learners, those are the ones often needing the differentiated instruction because they're not getting the information as easily, because it's typically not how information is given. Typically, it's text-based, it's textbook-based. So using videos, for example, and having conversation about the content in those videos, understanding that showing a video once is not often enough, that having questions about little snippets and moving back and forward and having children, engaging children in conversation and about what they see, in activities most specifically about what they see. Those activities can be geared at different levels, that those who are ready for really higher end conversations should have those, and others will, you can gear the activities at different levels. That's another aspect of differentiating instruction. There are programs like Play-Doh and other computer managed curriculum that I've used that give you great opportunity for differentiated instruction. In the school I worked at, we kept our information from year to year. And it was interesting because over the summer, when kids were gone for several months, 2 to 2.5 months, they would come back and we put them on this computer managed instruction. And the computer managed instruction would always test the kids constantly. It's about ongoing assessment. And if it noticed that certain content, the students were getting certain content wrong, it would step back and start giving you the prerequisite questions. Even though in the year before, those students understood that prerequisite knowledge, over the summer, they had forgotten it. Now, some kids don't forget anything over the summer. Some kids forget a lot over the summer. And so this is a great tool for us because it constantly would give curriculum based upon where the student is at. Even if the student had made progress and lost progress, it was able to differentiate for that child and that child's development. So those computer-managed instructional systems are also interesting and helpful. And I think that's some good ideas on differentiated instruction. We're able to do a whole session just on that, actually. The second question was about sort of how do I use my whiteboard? And I know the whiteboard has a lot of potential. It takes a lot of time to write my own. Where do I find examples of good technology use with the whiteboard? I know that both Smartboard and Promethean have places on their website where teachers submit curriculum. Some of those are terrific, some of them aren't so great. And unfortunately, teaching is often not a canned activity. You really have to make your own. A good idea is to get onto a place like Promethean Planet and to download some of those examples and modify them for you. Also, there are discussion boards within, for example, Promethean Planet, where teachers talk to one another and give each other advice on it. And that's really helpful because then you have a sense of what somebody thinks is valuable, what somebody didn't love. Another place just to get a good idea of what kind of tools online are helpful is if you use something like Delicious, which is a social bookmarking software. And that way, again, you can see other people's opinions of certain websites or of certain kinds of information. And that would be helpful. It's called Promethean Planet, and it's related. I see there's a question about what was the name of that website. Promethean is a type of whiteboard, and they have a very sophisticated resource for teachers that has videos, terrific videos, that give you some ideas of how you can use the features of a whiteboard. And if you're going to offer in-service to teachers, it's helpful to use those videos because again, it gives teachers an idea, something, a springboard to work from. Oh, they see, oh, that's interesting. I can do something like that in my class. Promethean Planet.
Dina, thank you very much for those clarifications. We will now read the last questions because the seminar will be finishing very soon. So Lila Ramsok asks, what are some suggestions for assessment? And this we understand of technology integration. So again, the question was from Lila Ramsok, what are some suggestions for assessment? And a second question is from Arlene Bachmeyer-Outram. What is the acceptance level with other teachers? I imagine that...
Okay, I am going to I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint that we shared, and I'm going to try to share the video. And the reason why I'm going to do that at this time is it does talk a little bit towards assessment. So I'm going to give that a shot and try another feature of this particular technology of the webinar. So hopefully this will work. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to share my screen, share my desktop. Hopefully you can see that. Can someone type into the chat if they can see it? Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, so I think I have to move this to show you the videos. I'm going to show you a few videos and talk about assessment. So let me show you this first video. This first video was made by a first grader. No, actually, it was made by a kindergartner. And it was before she was terrific at writing, but she had a lot of great ideas about writing. She could write very well with oral language, and she drew very well. She was a good artist, and she had great reading comprehension. So according to developmentally appropriate technology use, you want to start from children's strengths, what they can do. So we know that she's a good listener. We want to give her an opportunity to show us her comprehension skills. We know that she's got strong drawing skills. We want to give an opportunity to use that to document her drawing skills, her physical skills. And this is the movie she made that documents her abilities with literacy and physical skills in drawing.
Once she got this straight, and she likes Lima Bean. Now she doesn't like it because the school people don't like it. Beep. She turned into a bed with lots of stuff. And then she turned red a little bit. And she liked Lima Bean.
Let me see if I can sync that a little bit. So that was an example of a way a teacher assessed a child's literacy skills. They created, that's called a digital story, and she created a digital story where this recorded in a visual way the child's understanding of the reading, the read aloud that she had done in the class, the child's ability to work with plot and character development, and the child's ability to, in terms of her physical, her developments in terms of drawing and fine motor skills. So that's something that's terrific about technology. If you can use it to capture evidence of how a child is performing, performance-based assessment is fabulous. Let me show you another one. This is a video of a class of students. Now these are 3-year-olds. Very, very young. Some of them are even 2. And the teachers started off, as I said, using a microphone and letting the children play with the microphone and doing different activities in class, taking pictures and putting them up and talking about the pictures in terms of what was happening in the classroom and having circle time with those pictures. Then they went out on the field trip, and they wanted the children to record what they understood about the field trip. And they wanted to document and assess the kinds of knowledge the children gained in a digital recorder, the same one they had been using in the classroom. And they gave children an opportunity to talk about what they were doing, to record their learning. And this is the video. And this I can actually make my mic a little louder, just to make sure you can hear.
My mommy right I walk in a pumpkin. I eat on my snack. In my snack. Boogie out of bunny. Bunny. Why like the six? We pack on you pack it up. Only you in the cool, right? You tricky. Let's make a drink of it.
What is she doing?
She's eating. She's eating there. The babies are cute. The baby pigs. The baby cows. Up at the cows. No, not his toes. We get them food.
I'm going to stop it there. You get the idea. You can assess children at whatever level they're at. You can have a record of children's development. And you might have noticed in the video, some children were very difficult to understand. And if you were not thinking about assessment and documentation of children's skills, you might not include their contributions because they weren't clear. And because you're thinking this out as an assessment tool, you do include their contributions because it documents where they're at. So 2 months later, they'll be at a higher skill level, and you could go back and talk about the developmental difference with a parent or with the principal. Or if they didn't move to a higher level, again, you have concrete evidence of their development. So that's another interesting aspect of, again, this opportunity to get real-time, to use tools to get real-time evidence of children's development. With older grades, I already spoke a little bit about the assessment in those systems of the computer-managed instruction. There are also now an increasing number of programs that are sort of simulation programs that keep tons of data about how much time children spend in a certain place and how many questions they get right and certain kinds of questions. And it's not just the computer-managed ones. There are a lot of more interesting ones coming out. So, you could keep an eye on that. One of the most telling ideas that we had found with one of these computer-managed assessment systems is one of the kids, when we looked at the data about his testing, we found that he would take a really long time to answer questions. And we noticed, what we discovered when we really looked at his patterns, that after a certain number of questions, he really shut down. And it wasn't an issue of skill, but it was an issue of attention. So by looking at not just the number of questions he answered and how many were right and wrong, but exactly how much time he spent on task and how long it took him, when he got off task, we were able to determine intervention approaches, which again gets to differentiated instruction, so that we developed some strategies for him to work on a certain number of questions.
Thank you very much, Dina.